Okay, today we're going to start on the top of Pei Vav Amud Beis, right on the top. There's a new Mishnah. Easy Mishnah. We mentioned this before. Pei Vav Amud Beis. Yeah, it's a new Mishnah. Okay, are you ahead of us or behind us? Are you ahead? Okay. Pei Vav. Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. That's because of our learning. We should have the base of Mikdash. And we're learning. It's right on the top. See, there's a new Mishnah. Yeah. We're learning in memory of Zahava Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin. Okay, Hamavayash Sa'aram. Someone embarrasses a person when he's naked. So the typical embarrassment would be when someone takes off someone else's clothes. Those days they used to wear a robe or something, so someone would lift it up or maybe pull it down or something. That would be embarrassing a person. So if the person's already naked, so there's two interpretations here. The Rashi learns, well, you see the guy is not a typical guy. He's walking around naked, so probably he doesn't care about getting embarrassed either. Tosfos doesn't actually learn like that. Tosfos says that what more is there to embarrass him? Oh, okay, I jumped into the Gemara. Okay. Before we get into all of that, it embarrasses someone that's naked. Hamavayash asuma, someone that embarrasses someone that's blind. So he can't see around, can't see anything. Mavayash asayashin, or someone that embarrasses someone when he's sleeping. Chai of all of those, the person that embarrasses has to pay because the person that did the embarrassment did it with intention, so he has to pay for the embarrassment. Yashin should be if a person is asleep and he embarrassed someone else, then he's going to be pater. So someone that's asleep that gets embarrassed, the person has to pay for the embarrassment. But if a person is asleep and causes embarrassment to someone else, he's exempt. And the reason for that is, we'll see in a moment, Nafal min agag, if someone falls off a roof, hizik causes damage on the person that he falls on. Ubiyash, and he also embarrasses the person that he falls on. So he's chayiv ala nesek and pater ala boishes. He's chayiv for the damages, but he's exempt for the embarrassment. And very interesting, the Bach adds in over here. Shenemar v'shalcha yoda v'chsicha b'mavusha v'eina chayiv ala boishes ad she'em eskaben. So the Bach throws the pasuk back into the Mishnah, which is very interesting because you know how we learned from the Rambam that the Mishnah is a pirush on the Psukim, Torah Shebal Peh, is a pirush on the Chumash. What happened to all of the Psukim? Which Mishnah does this pasuk get attached to? So when Rebbe edited the Mishnah, he took all the Psukim out and he put it in a separate order. It doesn't go in the order of the Vayikra, Mishpatim. It doesn't go in the order of the Parsha. It was reorganized, and to reorganize it, you have to take the Psukim out. And here it's interesting. The Bach throws the pasuk back in. Yep, it's wow. It's thank you. It's seldom that you have psukim in the Mishnah. Okay, whatever the case is, the reason why you're exempt for embarrassment is because you only have to pay for embarrassment if he embarrasses on purpose, not if he unintentionally embarrasses someone. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. It's taught in a brisa. Bisha Yaram. He embarrassed this. We're bringing this from a brisa. We could have it's in the Mishnah as well. You embarrass someone that's naked, chayiv. You have to pay. But you can't compare. If the person is naked and you embarrass him, you can't compare to what the price is going to be that if he was fully dressed. If you embarrass him in the bathhouse, it's chayiv. But you can't compare someone that's in the bathhouse when you embarrass him if you embarrass him in the marketplace. Okay. We're on 86b.
Is this referring to making someone naked?
That's what it seems. It would seem that the typical embarrassment is if someone would remove someone else's clothing. Mm-hmm. So he's getting undressed in the bathhouse, and someone like from behind like pulls his pants down. He's getting undressed anyway, but nevertheless, he wants to get undressed. He doesn't want the other guy to undress him.
This is Arum.
And now Arum is a problem. So now the Gemara says that Amar Mar, the master taught, Bisha Yaram Chayav, Arum Bar Baishasu. So Taisvus learns he's already naked. How is he embarrassing him? Rashi learns that what do you mean? He's the type of guy that if he doesn't care to walk around naked, obviously he doesn't care about getting embarrassed. Yeah, I was at one of these weddings, non-religious wedding, and the women at these non-religious weddings, they hardly dress. But anyway, my wife was telling me that one of these ladies, a little bit like the dress, whatever was of the dress moved a little bit, she was all embarrassed. So even though they're dressed like, how they are, but nevertheless, they still have a standard that what it has to. So according to that, I mean, that would be the Gemara's teretz. The Gemara would answer that. But no, it was embarrassed. There is embarrassment even by someone that's hardly dressed.
Rabbi, question?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we automatically assume that the naked person wants to be naked? In the brachas, we say Hashem is malbi sharumim. I assume that's people who can't afford to get dressed, get clothes. So he clothes them. So why don't we say the Aram here is the person who unfortunately is naked because he is, either just a few tattered clothes or no clothes. And
right.
Your busha is that you're not helping him. It's like not giving tzedakah to another.
Right. That's a good point. In the Mendy and the Golem, there was this guy that got washed up on the shore. His boat drowned anyway, so they didn't want to. He lost his clothing in the water, but so someone put a barrel around him, so he was like walking around with a barrel. So they told him, "You look like you're in a pickle," but yeah, we're talking about someone that could be. We're talking about someone that doesn't have clothing. But he would probably put something on him like Adam and Chava. You put on some leaves, put on a little whatever you can find to cover yourself. Anyway, the Gemara is a little surprised that says Aram Bar Baishasu. He's someone that could become embarrassed. He's got used to walking around like that. Amarav Papa Mayaram. Papa says, what are we talking about? Someone that's naked. A wind came and wrapped up his clothing. It sounded like they lifted up or pulled down. And then another person comes and continues what the wind was doing. So the guy's going to say, I did anything more? The wind was doing that. He says, no, you're still chayiv because whatever the wind did, you added to that. Okay.
But pulling his clothes up and someone else flies out of his property and he's trying to catch on to something and he pulls out his clothes. That also embarrassment him.
If embarrassment has to be, if it was intention, either intention to cause damage or to embarrass. That's the only chayav. And then it's only if it was intentional to cause damage.
I think yesterday they mentioned the example of the woman that was trying to hurt her husband. In that case, she wanted to hurt him, but she didn't want to humiliate him, and she was liable.
She's liable. So intention for damage is the same like intention for embarrassment. Okay, Bisha bebeis merchatz. If we embarrassed him when he's in the bathhouse, chayiv beis merchatz bar baishasu. In the beis merchatz, is there really embarrassment? What's this little thing? That's okay. Amar of Papa Shibishal Gavanar. We're not talking about a real bathhouse. We're talking about a river. Where over there, people are still careful how they're getting dressed and with using a towel around them when they change or something like that. Boy Rababa Bar Mamal, Bisha Yashin Umeis Mahu. Rababa Bar Mamal has this interesting question. We're going to have two interpretations, I think, of the question. If someone was asleep when he got embarrassed, but he never woke up and he ends up dying. So now the question is, should the embarrassment be paid to the inheritors? Or do we say that he never got embarrassed? So the Gemara says, "My kami baile." What's the basis of Rababa Bar Mamal's question? Amar Rav Zvid, Rav Sid says, Hachi kami baile. His question was like this: Mishum kisufahu. Do we say that the payment of embarrassment is the shame that the person feels, which means like his face changes colors in that moment of shame? That's what he has to pay for. But he died. Less like Sufa, his face never changed colors. He never felt that feeling of embarrassment. So because he died. Or maybe it's the degradation, and he was still degraded. It doesn't have to do with the feeling that he got when he knew about it, and it has to do with his value in the eyes of others. We just went down. Well, it's an interesting question. What are we paying for in this? Tashima, yeah. Yeah, that would matter too. That would matter too. Although it doesn't say that, but it's clear that it depends on the situation, right? Tashima, come and listen. Maybe that's the shot. Should be based on merchatz that you can't compare it because everyone else is naked. So how can Tashima Reb Meir says Cherish v'katan yislam baishas. A deaf mute and a child, they do have embarrassment. Shaita, an imbecile, Ein lebaishas doesn't have embarrassment. You don't have to pay. If it's because of the degradation, that's why it says a child, because a child still is degraded. But if it's because of the change of colors of the face, the embarrassment, the shame. So katan bar baishasu, does a katan actually know to get embarrassed? He doesn't have that same feeling that an adult would have when he gets embarrassed. Elamai mishum zilusa. Okay, so it must be because of the degradation. Afilu shaitanami. Then the shaita also gets degraded when he's ashamed. Am I using the right word for zilusa? Amri, say it like this: Shaita ein lacha baishas k'teilu mizu. What is embarrassment? Embarrassment means, even if you're going to say that it's degradation, but how much lower can you get than being a shaita, being an imbecile? That's basically how the world is judged. There's shaita and up. That's what it is. So he's already on the bottom. You can't get any. What are you going to call him after that? Like what name can you call him that's going to be worse than that? There's nothing worse than that.
Rabbi, but the shota doesn't know he's a shota.
You're right.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know he's a shaita.
Right. So someone calls him that. Then
you know the story with who was the Rebbe Marash? Was it the Rebbe Marash? There was a town Meshuggah that he jumped on the wagon when the Rebbe Marash was leaving town. So he had a question for the Rebbe Marash. He said, "I'm the Meshuggah of this town, and my friend is the Meshuggah of the other town. I want to go be with my friend." The Rebbe Marash said, "No, every town needs a Meshuggah. You should stay here." And but he said, "But if you're so crazy, how do you manage to come to see me, to jump on the wagon?" He says, "Yeah, Meshuggah, v'seichel darf man haben." Yeah.
what does that mean?
That means you're crazy, but you still have to be smart. Okay, so but we should still determine from this that it has to do with the degradation. Because if it's just the embarrassment, katan bar kisufa, would the child be embarrassed? So Rav Papa says it's not a real proof because the talking about that when he gets older and you tell him that this is what happened to you as a child, so then he would get embarrassed. So we don't have a proof from the fact that a child has embarrassment that means that it's only degradation but not shame. It could be that there's shame as well, but when he's older, he feels that shame. Yeah. Sirah Elimelech was embarrassed that when he was a child, he nursed his mother. So he felt like all the childhood things that he was older. Elimelech said that there was no one in the world that was worse than him. He said he's the worst in the world. Yeah, I heard Rabbi Ginsburg explain that how could it be Rabbi Melech, the greatest Rebbe, with such a low self-esteem? So that's exactly the opposite. If he's the worst, then he's the Tachten. That means the Eibishter created the whole world for a dir b'tachtenim. That means that he's the purpose of everything. Isn't that amazing? It's a good twist on it. The Eibishter created the whole world just for me, because the Eibishter created the world of a dwelling place in the lowest places. And I'm the lowest. So I'm the purpose of the whole creation. Okay. Rav Papa says, Rav Papa has a different pshat in Rav Abba Bar Mamel's question. Rav Zvid said that it was degradation or shame. Rav Papa says, Mishum Kisufa Didehu Vamisle, is it the shame of himself, his own shame, but he died, so he never felt it? Or maybe it has to do with the shame of the family. And he died, so he didn't get the shame, but the family got the shame. Well, let's try to prove what the answer is to this. You see, we had a question, but we didn't know exactly what the question was. We had a scenario with the question, but we didn't know like what were the two sides to that question. Now it turns out that we have like 4 sides to that question, or 3. It says, well, Tashima, Chirish v'katan yesh lebaishas. Says a deaf mute and a child has embarrassment, shaytein lebaishas, but an imbecile doesn't have embarrassment. If it's because of the shame for the family, that's how a child has embarrassment. But if it's his own embarrassment, does a child have embarrassment? So it must be that it's the embarrassment to the family. But if it's the embarrassment to the family, I feel shaitanami. Then how come the imbecile doesn't have embarrassment? His family would be embarrassed if someone embarrasses him. So he's already as embarrassed as he can get. But nevertheless, we could still answer that it has to do with embarrassment to the family. Otherwise, how could the child have the embarrassment? Rav Papa no, Rav Papa says that the child has embarrassment because the michlam, because when he gets older, you remind him of it, he gets embarrassed. Vahatanya, and we actually have a brisa that supports this. The word vahatanya means but. We learned in a brisa, and when Rashi says that vaha doesn't mean but, it means in this, because vaha could mean this or but. So Rashi tells us benichusa.
They have some scenarios where they're worse than others, so sometimes they are there. What in this?
Yeah, the Gemara talks about itim chalais, that when he goes, it's like unstable. Sometimes he is, sometimes he's not. Yeah, I seem to remember that was discussed somewhere. Probably when at the time when he's healthy, he's not considered.
Yeah, but then they told him, oh, you did this before this was done to you.
Oh, so that's an interesting question. Hillel's asking someone that goes through stages of being crazy and not crazy. So he should have the same status as the child, because when he becomes normal, they could remind him of what he did when he was. Interesting.
Is there a difference between a shuga and a shota? Or you translate imbecile.
Yeah.
Someone without intelligence.
Right.
Doesn't know. But a shuga, geniuses usually.
Right.
They're just off.
Right. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
So the guy who jumped on the shuga who jumped on his cart, he's not an imbecile.
Right. Good point.
So in English, sometimes imbecile is used as a derogatory thing. You're an imbecile.
Right.
What does it mean in
But here means that he doesn't have his capacity. He doesn't have this like that. He doesn't have. Yeah, that's the Gemara in Chagiga has 3 interpretations of the shait. One of them is Ma'amid Mashanais. He destroys things that are given to him. He can't like hold on to things. But it means that he doesn't have the capacity to. What do they say with the get? If you go to the store and bring back the change, then yeah.
Is this the basic concept of human dignity? The reason I'm asking the question is we have the halakha about human dignity even after death.
Right.
And that would seem to say that the person's awareness isn't important. There's an inherent human dignity.
Right. This seems like it's something else. That they call that kavod abrius.
Okay.
That seems like something else. This we're looking at the actual feeling of shame, or the degradation, or the shame of the family, but it has to do with shame more than.
It seems very difficult to say that a child doesn't feel shame. I mean,
I know.
Kids feel more shame than adults a lot of time.
Right.
There's a difference between shame and guilt.
Right. I don't know. I don't understand this Gemara unless I'm going to readjust the word katan, that it doesn't mean someone under bar mitzvah, and katan would mean at the level where they would not actually feel that shame. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't understand this Gemara. But I don't have the right to adjust that. And, the commentaries could. Yeah. There's some the children that are very, very cognizant of what's appropriate, what's not. They won't wear the suit that doesn't have like the right stripe on it because they don't match with the other friends. Like they're very aware of what's embarrassing. So okay, but Tanya, Rebbe Yomer, Chirish Yeshlei Boishes, a Chirish, a deaf mute has embarrassment. Shaitein leBoishes. In Katan Pamim Yeshlei Pamim Ein. Sometimes he has, sometimes he doesn't. And the answer is when yes, when no. Is Had Michla Michla, Had Michla Michla. It depends if he's reminded when he's older, if it's going to be embarrassing for him. If he's reminded when it's older and it's embarrassing, so then that's considered embarrassment. And if when he's older, they tell him, when you were a kid, you wore diapers, so that's not that's say shikayach, right? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Hamavayesh asasuma. Hamavayesh asasuma.
He covers his face.
Someone that embarrasses someone that's blind. Okay. Chulu. Masnisin like Rabbi Yehuda. Our Mishnah doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda. This is Rabbi Yehuda has a unique opinion about blind people. He held that they were patur from mitzvahs. They're exempt from a lot of things. This Gemara is going to go through this. This is this famous Gemara. Where is it? Also in Brachos, I think. Anyway, it starts off like this. That our Mishnah, it's in Kedushin. That our Mishnah doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda because we said that if you embarrass someone that's blind, then you have to pay. And we made a distinction between someone that's asleep. Someone that's asleep that gets embarrassed, you have to pay as well. But someone that's asleep that embarrasses doesn't have to pay. And we didn't do that for the blind person. We didn't make that distinction that a blind person that embarrasses someone else. So, okay, so if that's the case, our mission doesn't fit with Rabbi Yehuda. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda, a blind person doesn't have embarrassment. Rabbi Yehuda also says that a blind person is also exempt. If he kills someone, he doesn't have to go to exile. If he violates a negative prohibition, he doesn't get lashes. And he also doesn't get the death penalty if he kills someone. Capital punishment. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Gamar einecha einecha me'edim zayim. We learned from Edim Zayim, and it says over there, like you should not have compassion. Your eyes should not have compassion on them. They should do to them what they wanted to do to others. And also by embarrassment, it says that you cut off her hand, which meant that she has to pay money, and you should not have compassion on her. That means she has to pay. So it's both of them. It says so which teaches me that just like when it comes to embarrassment, you put ma hasam sumalai, afacha sumalai. Just like over there. Oh, just like by the Edim Zayim, you can't have a blind person to be an aid. You can't have You can't have a blind person to be a witness. Those conspiring witnesses. A blind person can't be because he has to see. So too over here, when it comes to embarrassment, so a blind person is exempt. Mechai v'galos. What about from going to exile? The Tanya was started in Brisa b'lei ra'is, without vision, without seeing. That means if someone killed someone without seeing, it means it was unintentional. But it sounds from that he would have been able to see in another situation. It's only over here that it was unintentional. Prat l'summa div Rabbi Yehuda. which excludes the blind person. That's what Rabbi Yehuda holds. Rabbi Meir says asuma. Rabbi Meir says no, it's exactly the opposite. It's coming to include a blind person, that a blind person goes to exile. My time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? The pasuk says, Amalach, Rabbi Yehuda would say to you, it says, Vashayavai esrei bayar lach devetim. When the pasuk says, if someone goes into the forest to cut wood, and we know what happens, the wood shoots out, or the handle of the axe shoots out and kills someone. So that's of afilu suma. That would tell me even if it's a blind person can also chop wood. Be careful, but he could chop wood. Then it goes on and it says, without intention, without vision, that's the word for intention. So that's excluding the blind person. Reb Meir, what does Reb Meir say to that? Reb Meir holds that he is chayiv. It says without vision, that's excluding the blind person. And then when it says without intention, it's also coming to exclude. So when you have a double exclusion, you're actually including. Like a double negative in certain parts of math, a double negative. Okay.
We have that in the Torah. We have that right with Lemech. He's blind and he kills Cain.
Oh yeah, he was blind. That's so interesting. He shot the arrow, and his grandson, who's told him where to look? His grandson told him where to look.
Tuval Cain.
Was Tuval Cain his son or his grandson? Something.
I'm not sure.
He was blind, but he still had a good could still shoot the arrow to the medrash. Okay. So Rabbi Yehuda, what does Rabbi Yehuda do with bivli das? It's coming to exclude someone that has intention. Okay. And then we have a Gzeir Shava that assumes exempt from capital punishment because we compare it to the exile, to the cities of refuge. And then we have another Gzeir Shava that Rasha from, it says in Bin Hakais Rasha, and Misa says Asher Rasha Lamas. So basically, the blind person is exempt from all of these punishments. Tanyidach, I have another brisa that says Rabbi Yehuda says Sumein leBaishas, a blind person has no embarrassment. Rabbi Yehuda actually says that he's exempt from all judgments in the Torah. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? When it says dinim in the Torah, doesn't mean all laws of the Torah, doesn't mean all judgment laws of the Torah. All monetary laws. Wow. My time with Rabbi Yehuda, what's the reason? Amar Krat says V'shaftu Eida. The congregation will judge, it's referring to the Bezdin, between the person that kills intentionally and the person that kills unintentionally. No, between the one that kills and the one that and the close relative. For these judgments, anyone that goes into the category of someone that's killing and someone that's the close relative, has the monetary laws. Doesn't have the monetary laws if he doesn't have Taniyidach. Another brayso, Rabbi Yehuda says that a blind person doesn't have the loss of embarrassment. He's exempt from all mitzvahs in the Torah. Where do we get this from? Amar Rav Shisha, Breder Ravidi, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Shisha, the son of Ravidi, says, what's Rabbi Yehuda's reason? If he doesn't have monetary laws, he also doesn't have the other mitzvahs. Taisus over here says, Taisus over here says that if you go in this Taisus, it says Venira. So like 4 lines down in the wide lines. Says Venera the Afalgav the Pater Rabbi Yehuda Summa Mikol Mitzvahs Mikol Makam Midirabanan Chayiv. It's Chayiv Midirabanan. It's only Midiraisa biblically that he's exempt. The Afalgav the Ishim B'Mifter B'Mitzvah Man Grama. A woman is exempt from all positive time-bound mitzvahs. And the Rabbanan don't step in and say, no, she's chayiv to hear shofar, she's chayiv to shake the lulav, she's chayiv to sit in the sukkah. The rabbis don't step in and do that. Because they don't need to. Because a woman has a lot of mitzvahs. The blind person doesn't have any mitzvahs. What are you going to have? He's going to be a guy. He has no halachas at all. It's mashma from Taisvis that he doesn't have the loisases. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like that the blind person would be allowed to go to church, if not for the biblically. That's what it sounds like.
But there's been examples of rabbis that have gone blind, and then
Yeah, it's talking about that they started off blind, not gone blind. Yeah, it's only if he was born blind. Yeah.
What question, really?
Yeah.
You've been reading Mishpatim as if it's Dine Mamanos, which
Yeah.
is something I've seen in a lot of common places. Is that generally the way it's used? Is the word Mishpatim alone is Dine Mamanos?
I think in this Gemara that's what it means, and that's what Hill translated for me over here.
Uh-huh.
One of the English ones, monetary. Who may have said monetary? Dinim, we call dinim shabbatari translated as monetary law, and then the Gemara calls it mishpatim. When it brings the pasuk.
I'm not sure. But I think the monetary has kind of like these things that look like parentheses, and then blind person also has it. I'm not sure. And then every time that it says monetary, it has like these things around it. I'm not sure what difference do those things make.
I'm not sure.
It says civil law. It says monetary law.
It says civil law. Mishpatim. Is it the top line of the page?
Yeah.
It says civil law. Civil law. Is that the same as monetary law? I think so. Yeah, as opposed to the ritual law. And then ritual law, like halachas, like Shabbos and that type of stuff. But then Rabbi Yehuda goes on and he exempts him from the other mitzvahs. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Yeah, you see we're holding Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, Miresh, originally, Hava Amina, I would have said, Man Damar halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef was blind, So he's in his later years. In his later years, he forgot his learning as well. But in his later years he forgot his learning. I don't know when he went blind. If anyone would paskin that the halach like Rabbi Yehuda that says that a blind person is exempt from all the mitzvahs, I would make a holiday for the yeshiva and make a siyum, make a big feast, a kiddush. Hashta my time. What's the reason? Because I'm not commanded and I'm performing the mitzvahs anyway. I'm even better than everyone. Yeah, as if, right. Now that I heard what Rab Chanina said, Rab Chanina taught. Rab Chanina is first generation Amira in Eretz Yisrael. Rab Chanina Bar Chama, the student of Rebbe. Says that someone that's commanded gets more reward than someone that's not commanded. Why? It's much harder to take a test than to do a riddle. They give these kids a riddle to try to figure out. They'll spend like an hour trying to figure it out. Or you give them a test, they say, I don't know it. They just hand it back.
Time for commercial.
for commercial.
Okay, what are you advertising?
I just want to advertise that Joseph Molina responds to emergencies of all kinds, second time, and he is he is fantastic. If you have any sort of handyman,
Oh, really?
plumbing, this, that, construction emergency, or without an emergency, he is fantastic. Please
Sponsors.
Dr. Stein is advertising for Joseph Molina's a handyman work.
If you need insurance, call Heinz.
I second that. I second that.
Moshe seconds that. Remember the old-fashioned commercials? Didn't stop for a commercial. This I am drinking Coca-Cola. This is Marlboro. Okay.
Brought to you by.
So
The person is commanded that the Torah also puts like more kind of like resistance.
yeah, exactly. Mandam, okay. But once I heard what Rabbi Chanina said, that there's more resistance. Once a person's commanded, so mandamali ain't halacha Rabbi Yehuda avdina yamitavel rabbanon. If you tell me that the halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, then I'll make a holiday for the rabbis. My time, what's the reason? When I'm commanded, then I get more reward. More reward. It's interesting that he's talking about the reward, but the idea is that that the connection to Hashem through being commanded is stronger than when someone does something voluntarily. When he does something voluntarily, that's his own thing. When he does something that Hashem commanded, so then he's being connected to Hashem. It's a higher connection. Okay. We have a new Mishnah. The following is more strict about a person causing damage than an ox causing damage. A person that causes damage has to pay damages, pain, doctor bills, loss of work, and embarrassment. He also has to pay for if there's a fetus that dies, he has to pay for that fetus. Goes to the father, the husband. However, an ox, and it doesn't have to pay for the fetus, and it only pays damages, doesn't pay the other 5. How did that come out that it doesn't pay for the fetus? We had a pasuk, right? Inatsu anoshim, when the men will be arguing. So what happens to the fetus? What happens? Nothing, just doesn't pay, right? Okay, that's what it says. Okay, next. We had this before. If someone hits his mother or his father or his mother, and he doesn't make a bruise. If someone bruises his friend on Yom Kippur, he has to pay everything. We're going to see the contrast in a moment. If someone hits a Jewish slave, and he has to pay everything. He doesn't have to pay loss of work if it was his own slave. Who's he supposed to pay it to? So he works for him. But if it worked for someone else, he would have to pay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We had this phrase yesterday also on
Right.
Yom Kippur. What's the point of adding that word?
The point of that is going to be a contrast that if he does it on Shabbos, he's going to be exempt. It's really a lineup. On Yom Kippur, Chayev, on Shabbos, Pater. That's but the problem is there's like a few things in the middle, so you forget it's. Yeah, the Mishnah is set up in a certain way where if it would be, sometimes it has to, it's there's different ways of setting up the Mishnah, and one of them would be where it would be like indented. So the following statements are going to be like indented, and then it would come back to the contrast of the Yom Kippur to Shabbos.
Like Shabbos was a capital punishment, and then Yom Kippur was
Exactly.
Kares.
Kares only for eating, Malchus for work. Yeah, Kares is only for eating on Yom Kippur. Okay, so if someone hits Eved Kanani of others, then he's chayiv b'kulam. He has to pay everything. I assume the master is going to take all that money, right? Nothing belongs to the slave. Yeah, everything the slave gets goes to the master. Rabbi Yehuda says that slaves don't have embarrassment. Okay. Yeah, maybe Hillel's saying maybe because you can't get worse than that. Like we said about the shaita. Maybe that's the
What's what the shaita or slave?
Now, we said it before by shaita, and Rabbi Yehuda says it about a slave. Unless he has a pasuk for it. How do they translate pigiyas and ra? A deaf mute. What is the law about them? They are no, not a note, not the note. How does it translate? Their contact is bad. Pigiyasa means their contact is bad. Okay, contact is bad. The Mishnah explains. Well, it doesn't mean contact with them is bad. It comes out like this. It says, anyone that damages them is chayiv. You have to pay. But if they damage others, they're exempt. That means that it's a lose situation that to hang out with a chayiv shaita v'katan. Any damages they cause the other person, they're exempt, and all the damages that the person causes them it's like so unfair. The chayiv, the same as with the slave and with the woman. Someone, it's slightly different, as we'll see in a moment. Someone damages them, they have to pay. But if they damage others, they're exempt. But if they get divorced, for example, they get divorced, to get freed, then they have to pay, which is different than by the child, or even when he grows up, he's exempt. Yeah, interesting. Okay, that's the contrast, right? We would have put this in the middle, we would have put in parentheses or something, or we would have, you could you line it up differently. So if someone hits his father and his mother and he makes a bruise, or someone that hits his friend on Shabbos, he's exempt from everything. They should need the benafshay because he gets judged with his life. But if someone hits his own Eved Kanani, he's exempt from everything. Because what's he going to do? Pay it from one pocket to the other? Okay, Boy Mine Rav Elazar Mirav. So Rav Elazar, who's Rav Elazar ben Pedas, has a question from that he asked Rav. Rav Elazar ben Pedas was a friend of Rabbi Yechanan, but apparently before he went to Eretz Yisrael, he was by Rav. It was in Bavel. He's going to be over there in Eretz Yisrael because he's mainly in Eretz Yisrael. This is rare. We have a few times, but it's clear that he was in Bavel. Yeah. Okay. You notice Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi, it means that he's from Eretz Yisrael. If there's a Yud, that means he's from Eretz Yisrael. Some people thought that it was a Tana or an Amir. It's not. It doesn't have to do with Tanaim and Amirim. It has to do with the Yud means from Israel, and Rav means he's from Bavel. Rabbi means he's from Israel.
I thought the Rabbi means that he had smicha.
Yeah, that may be the explanation for that, but it was only in Israel where they had the smicha. Yeah. Someone damages a young girl. Who does the money go to? Do we say that since the father has the right to sell his daughter in marriage, the father takes the kedushin money? If he wants to marry off his daughter, he can marry her to whoever he wants. So therefore, damages also go to the father. You see, the father owns her. My timer, what's the reason? Because take a look at it like this. If he would marry her off to someone, now that she's damaged, maybe the person's going to pay less. for the marriage. He's going to give her less of Kedushin money, which means that this person damaged the father's income. Do we say or do we say that no, the father has one specific right, and don't extend it more than that. He can marry her off to wherever he wants, even someone that has mukashchin, that has boils. But when it comes to damages, he's not allowed to hit her. He can't cause her a bruise. She's another, human being. Just because it's his daughter, it doesn't mean he's allowed to hit her. He's not allowed to hit her. I mean, he would be allowed to educate her, but not to. He can't just bruise her. So, like Hanile Rahmana. So therefore, when it comes to the bruise money that she gets, it doesn't go to him. He has no right over her bruises. He only has rights over her who she's going to marry. So therefore, okay. So Amar Lei, Rav responded, the money does not go to the father. It would go to her. Only the marriage money goes. Let's finish till the two dots. They asked the question on Rav. Someone damages an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave. So he has to pay everything, except for loss of work, because loss of work is his own, he's working for him if it was him. Okay, now, the Gemara is understanding like this, that if the father keeps the work that the daughter does, so then if someone damages the daughter and she can't do work, so that money should go to the father. So we see that the father does get more than just the marriage money. The father also gets the money from the loss of work. The Gemara answers, Amar Abaye answers for Rav. Yeah, Rav would agree that the sheves, the loss of work, would go to the father. What about the other things? That's what we were discussing. Okay. Esrei, we have a question. The Brisa says that if someone damages his older son, he gets the money right away, even though he's damaging his child. It's his own child. Yeah, the father has to pay him. If he damages his young child, he has to buy him something, which we'll see later what it is, and that he'll take the money later, put it into mutual funds. If someone damages his daughter, he's pater, he's exempt. But if others damage, you have to give it to the father. See, Rav was incorrect. The money goes to the father. The Gemara says no. Hachanami b'sheves. Rav could have been correct, because maybe over here we're talking about loss of work. But the loss of work goes to the father because the daughter's income goes to the family. Okay, let's leave it over here.